we need to be watchful of what we call reason. Because there's a tendency in modern culture to actually define reason in a certain, in a positivistic way, purely. That it's that which is knowable, that which is provable, that which is measurable, that which is demonstrable. But the reality is that, man is mystery. I am mystery to myself. I mean, a doctor can tell me how I work, but even he isn't sure. He isn't sure of what will happen. He can't make predictions. So there is a mysteriousness about our existences. And while that is true, while we walk around the place carrying this mystery within us, it is fatally dangerous for us to start constructing realities out of which we seek to expunge mystery and unknowability and uncertainty. And this brings me to the question of reason. That reason is actually much more than simply the head. It's simply much more than a measuring tool. It is also the heart. We are deeply irrational beings in all kinds of ways. And we apprehend reality in all kinds of complex ways, which we don't necessarily know. You meet somebody in the street and you have a conversation. On the basis of a minute-long conversation, you have evaluated that person at the deepest level of yourself, based on past experience of encountering other people of whom you've had certain experiences. And in my experience, that judgment, even though it seems to be summary, it actually tends to be fairly accurate in the long term. You tend not to be surprised very much thereafter by the generality of the person you've encountered. So that tells us that there's a deeper form of reason which is not expressible in language and logic of the bunker kind. And I think therefore that these discussions can actually become reduced, can that narrow into bottlenecks where we talk about, it's kind of a whataboutery discussion. And really what we need to have is a much broader discussion which actually considers the question of our humanity. Because our humanity is a deeply complex thing which causes massive problems in all kinds of areas, as we've discussed, in religion as much as anywhere else, in religious institutions and so on. But at the end of the day, we are mystery. And we are defined by mystery and by the question. Now the problem is that in the bunker, we come to a different conclusion about ourselves. I was speaking in Dublin a couple of years ago after the Pope made his speech about the bunker, and I was speaking about Patrick Kavanagh, what those beautiful poems, which Patrick Kavanagh was a mystical poet. He saw in reality the created thing always. He saw the bird, the leaf, the tree, always as the created, and saw in them the resonance of his own createdness. He talked about the flash which came out of the words of the poem. The flash erupted out of as the sign of the other world coming through. And I was speaking about this, and at the end a man stood up and said, we're tired of all this stuff, this is old hat, I came here for a lecture about Patrick Kavanagh, I'm not interested in a lecture in Catholicism. He says, don't you realise that man has been to the moon? And in that sentence there was really a postcard from the bunker, saying to us, listen, we have now, as Michael says, we've learned almost everything. In truth, we've learned almost nothing. We have a minor inkling about certain things progressively from maybe 100, 200, in the last 100 years we've probably learned more than we've learned in the totality of time before. But still we know almost nothing about ourselves and about our existences and about our human reality. And the strange thing is, man has been to the moon. When man went to the moon, Neil Armstrong walked on the moon. And then he went back, came back to Earth safely, and he went to his bed. And he got up in the morning, and he looked in the mirror, and he still had the same question. Who is Neil Armstrong? Who makes me? Where do I come from? Where am I going? Having conquered the moon, as it were, hadn't solved any of his questions. The problem is, and when you actually investigate, particularly the American astronauts, the Soviet ones are a different matter, as we know, as we said. But what we find with the Americans is that when they go up there, they have this tendency, this annoying tendency from a secular atheistic point of view, to fall on their knees in awe and wonderment at what they encounter up there, and to realise that there is actually an order and a purpose and a harmony with the inner mystery, that in a certain sense that the universe reflects the inner mysteriousness of the universe of man, the internal universe of man. Now, what I didn't know, what I subsequently discovered, was that the last thing that Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong did before they stepped out onto before they opened that door to go out onto the surface of the moon, was they celebrated communion together. John Glenn said that when he was there, when he went up there, he saw that this is true. He was reinvigorated in his wonderment and in his certainty of order in the universe. But down here in the bunker, and this is the real thing I want to draw attention to, how the bunker works. Because down here, we who are not adventuring, we who are not risking our lives, who are not going out there to explore the heavens, we conclude, there you are. God doesn't exist. We're in control now. Now I think we need to look at the distinction between the guy sitting with his can of beer watching the moon landing on TV and the fact that Neil Armstrong's up there risking his life and he sees God and the man in the couch can see only the can. Thank you.